Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns and welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about branding, not just branding of the company, a product, but ourselves, personal branding. I got Ben Baker on, who's an expert in this and has been doing it his whole life. We're going to talk about what makes it work, how to do it, and the difference between a great brand and an average brand. But before we get into it, I want to make sure you check out at the very end. I'll be giving you an update on the classes going into September, some of the successes that I'm having. Start dropping sound bites from users. But I'm also going to be offering one-on-ones. And basically, I've always been offering email question and answer that I put into the course, but I want to make sure everyone's taking advantage of that. I'm going to hold the prices the same till the end of this week, the first week in September. I know everyone's been kind of coming and going with vacations and everything. So make sure you listen up at the very end for that. Also, have you checked out Pipedrive? Pipedrive just announced a new capability, which includes automating steps, meaning that when you move from one stage to another, it can automatically do things like send an email, delegate things. So it really has now a workflow that's built into it at no extra cost. You can try it out for 1 month with the Brutal Truth coupon code. Just type that in, and if you talk to their support department, make sure you tell them you heard about it on the podcast, The Brutal Truth, or the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. Make sure you're connecting up with me on LinkedIn, and if you see some of my content flying by, please give it a thumbs up. I have a company page for the podcast called B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. What a coincidence. Also, going to be starting up probably more episodes coming up, and now that we're going in fall, and by the end of the year, I might be separating out the podcast into specializations for CMOs, for CROs, for CEOs. For those people who don't want to listen to other things other than marketing, other than sales, or other than leadership stuff. And I'll probably keep this podcast all of them. So make sure you're checking out the show notes for all the deals and the courses you can find at b2brevenue.com. Training under there, and you can schedule a time to talk about it if you think it would match your company versus just or two or people. I can customize the course for your particular product and customer base. Let's get into the show and the interview with Ben. Here we go. Hey Ben, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
You know what, Brian, thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm up here in Vancouver, BC. Actually, I live in a small little suburb called Steveston. I don't know if anybody here watches Once Upon a Time, but that's about where that's filmed. So the last 7, 8, 9 years that the show's been running, you'll see all those actors running around on a daily basis. We own a marketing company. We do strategic branding and marketing and have for the last, about 20 years now. We help our clients to stop being commodities and start being brands worth loving. You know, it's all about telling a brand story. It's all about how do you be relevant to your audience? How do you communicate with them in a way that they find valuable, that they want to engage with, and they're going to stop seeing you as just another price and see you as a partner. So that's what I do all day long.
Yeah. And what do you typically run into? A company name that makes no sense, an image that doesn't represent anything, and a value prop that no one understands? Is that common?
You know what? It's usually the latter. You know, it's the logo is the last thing I always look at.
Yeah.
The logo is the thing. It's all it is the placeholder for a brand. Most people think the logo is the brand. All it is a pretty picture that reminds people of who you are, what you do, and why they should care. You know, I tend to look at companies and sit there and say, okay, you've been around for 35 years. You started in this industry. Your clients have changed. The way you do business has changed, but you're still telling the same story. You know, so let's sit there and update your story. And sometimes it's a complete rebrand with a name change and a logo change, and everything goes with it. And sometimes it's just a refocus or a retweak. You know, it depends on what really that particular client needs.
And what particular industry do you focus on? Is it anything specific, or is it just company size, or?
Yeah, well, we work with clients that are in the $10 to $100 million range. We work a lot with B2B. You know, I tend to leave the B2C to other people. There's people that enjoy that world a lot more than I do, and they're a lot better at it. But where we tend to do is long-term value propositions with clients. And that's the B2B world. We work a lot with logistics companies, transportation companies. We do work a lot with financial planning and insurance companies. And a lot of it has to do with long-term value of clients. And that's the kind of stuff that we tend to get involved with.
And what does an engagement look like? Who reaches out? What is the process you take them through?
Yeah, the process that we take them through is multifold. The people that, first of all, who reaches out? In a smaller company, it could be anywhere from the CEO to a CF. I've even had CFOs reach out to me, but mostly it's VP marketing, HR people, etc. that reach out to me. But the process really comes down to we know that we're not communicating as effectively as we are. Sales are down. We're not getting the new clients that we want. We find that there's new players in the marketplace. We don't feel that we're relevant anymore. Help.
Yeah.
And, the first process is really about insight and discovery. It's about understanding where they are today. Until you can understand where a customer is today, and what their goals are, what their short-term or medium-term and their long-term goals are, it's almost impossible to help them. So, the first, $25,000, $50,000 at a time could be spent in just understanding where they are. What does their competition look like? How are they currently communicating? How are they communicating that brand both internally and externally? What do their customers think about them? What makes them different from their competition?
Yeah.
And once you go through all those type of things, then you can start, crafting an understanding of who they want to be based on who they are, and authentically help them get there. Because it's a lot of times people sit there and say, well, we want to be number one in customer service. That's great. Well, every time I call your customer service line, I'm on hold for 25 minutes. So there's the first, hole in the dike. And I've had that conversation with CEOs. So you sit there and say, not only is it a branding issue, but there's probably some operational issues that go along with it. And you can't make promises in your marketing that your operations can't keep. And if everybody isn't on board and everybody isn't, singing from the same song sheet, the new brand may be new and shiny and pretty, but it's totally irrelevant if they're not living the brand.
And is that what you run into a lot, where you're asked to put the lipstick on the pig, in a sense? Or
yeah, I mean, you get a lot of companies that want you to put lipsticks on the pig, and quite honestly, I refuse to do it.
Yeah.
I sit there and say, look, I can spend $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, $200,000 with you. We can make you look pretty, but it's not going to make you more money.
Yeah.
And I tend to come to the realization really early in my career that the only metric that really matters at the end of the day is money in the bank.
Right. That is the only KPI.
Likes, social media likes, unless it's really moving people towards, a funnel and being able to move people towards, a buying pattern doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Having 100,000 and 200,000 or 500,000 followers is nice, but if they're not engaged, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And we see that all the time on Twitter or LinkedIn, with millions and millions of followers, and they put a post out and it gets 2 likes or 2 reads or something. And you're like, well, that followership isn't engaged.
Yeah. They're great people that you bought, but they're not loyal.
Right. Or they maybe followed you for a different reason, or that the reason has changed. And we see that on social media all the time.
Absolutely.
And how much of it, your job, is really like picking the words, the copywriting? Because you see a lot of people succeeding just with that.
Yeah. And I've got a really good copywriter that I work with. In fact, I've got 3. No, but seriously, I mean, I've got a guy that only does financial copywriting for me. He works with my financial clients, and that's all he does. Is he copywrites for the financial industry, but he's great at it.
Yeah.
I've got another old school copywriter that's probably in his mid-60s that has been doing direct mail copy for 35 or 40 years. He is phenomenal at getting people right to the point and moving people into the funnel. So it really depends on what you need,
Yeah.
Depends on who I'm going to bring into the mix. The way I worked is, when I went out on my own, I used to work for another company, and then I bought my own firm about 11 years ago, and I realized that having everybody in-house was a disservice to my clients. I am far more valuable to my clients with a healthy Rolodex than a bunch of people sitting at a desk. That way, we can bring on board the people that are right for them instead of the people that are there right now.
And how do you deliver the good news or the bad news of what you'd like to do?
You know what? For me, it's honest conversations.
Yeah.
I tend to speak, fairly bluntly. I understand large corporates speak very well. I understand how to, what do the boardrooms need to hear. But on the other hand, my attitude is you're bringing me in as a consultant. You're bringing me in as an outside source. You're bringing me in to tell you what the people on the inside are not willing to tell you or are afraid to tell you. My attitude is the worst that's going to happen to me is I'm going to get fired. Really, that's the worst that's going to happen to me. The best thing that can happen to me is I can help you move your needle. And that's what I'm trying to do.
And what is the typical feedback you get? Because change is hard, and anything that's different kind of is a threat in some ways.
Yeah.
Because somebody came up with it. Everyone's used to it.
Yeah.
And, every company I've ever been at, the website is the go-to complaint for everybody,
There is no perfect website. God knows I'm always tweaking my own. So, and I get that. And those are the stories that I tell. The stories that I tell is what was relevant 5 years ago may not be relevant today. Perfect example. 11 years ago, when I first started off with my own company, I called it CMYK Solutions. Now, that's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, the four colors that make up four-color process in printing. With those four colors, everything is possible. Well, that was a day when Facebook was in infancy, Twitter, LinkedIn, none of the social media was really at the forefront yet when I first created the brand. Now, 5 years later, my brand CMYK Solutions was being pigeonholed. Oh, you're a printer. No, actually, we're a strategic marketing company. No, you're CMYK Solutions, you must be a printer. And I realized that the brand that I had picked and that I loved and I chose and I did it very deliberately was no longer relevant. So I had to rebrand myself in order to move my company, the things that I was already doing, the things I was already capable of, the things that I love to do, to get people to understand that that was the value that I was able to offer them. And that's where your brand marketing came about. So when you're able to tell those type of stories to customers, they get it. They understand that, what happened in the past is not always the right thing for today, and it may not be the right thing for the future. Well, and when you can make it personal and relevant, you can help people through that process and guide them through where the real hurt is and work on those things first.
And that's it. And we see it certainly on the B2C space all the time, especially like in the book space. The person who picks, a great title with a great cover, that's pretty much 80% of it, isn't it? A lot of times.
I hope so. Leading into that is that I just wrote my own first book, which is Powerful Personal Brands, a hands-on guide to understanding yours. And, and I'm agonizing over the cover right now. I just signed off on it.
Yeah.
It goes to press on September 5th. The Kindle's already out, but you're right. You take a look at it and say, is the visual correct? Are the words correct? Am I telling the right story? And the big thing is are you telling the right story to the right people in the right way? Because too many companies don't understand who their audience truly is.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. The problem is if you don't understand who your audience is, you can't communicate to them. The story I tell is even Coca-Cola doesn't have 100% market share. There are people out there that just will never buy a Coca-Cola. They're loyal to Pepsi, or they're loyal to root beer, or they're loyal to whatever, and they're never going to buy a Coca-Cola. Coke's not worried about those people. They're worried about influencing the people that are already within their fold. the people that are part of their tribe, the people that are already listening to them and see value in what they bring to the table. Those are the people they talk to, and they don't worry about the people on the fringes, because you know what? There's always going to be somebody out there that doesn't like what you do. And if you focus on those people and you try to make those people happy, you're going to go crazy and you're going to alienate the people that are truly champions of your brand.
And how much of this is a kind of a process, a recipe, versus how much of it is artistry, chef implementation?
I look at myself as more of a chef. Yeah. I mean, there is definitely some baking components part of this. There's no question about it. There's a process involved. There is, there's step by step. There's analysts, but there's got to be the nuance within. Every company is different. Every board of directors is different. Every, internal company dynamic is different. And you need to consider all those factors when you're building a brand. And you need to look at what is happening both inside the company, what's happening outside the company, what's happening with the competition, where is the market going. And you need to look at all those factors and be able to, mix everything up and add the right bit of spice to be able to make that company work for its audience. There is a process that I take the clients through, absolutely. But there's got to be flexibility within that process, because if there's not, if you throw everybody into a cookie cutter and you hope that they're all going to look and feel the same and you're going to get success, you're not.
Yeah. And you're in a tough position, because what you're really doing is trying to come up with something for their customers, prospects, but your customer is them.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a very, because I get put in that situation all the time, like fix our sales process.
Yeah.
And if I tell them the truth, that I'm going to get alienated. So I got to find something else or something that's easier to swallow.
But I take the time and I tell my customers, I need to talk to your customers.
Yeah.
I actually need to physically go out there and talk to your customers. And sometimes I bring in a survey company as well to be able to do surveys, both internal surveys within the company and also surveys of customers, to be able to sit there and go, where are people's headspaces at? And, surveys are not perfect. Interviews are not perfect. A lot of it is educated guess.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, some of it is voodoo. But you know what? The trick is to do the best voodoo you can do and take the best guess you can do based on years and years of experience to be able to come up with the best solution. And, there are always going to be naysayers within a company. There's always going to be people that want to block you and sit there and say, but we've always done it this way. And I say, well, how is that working out? Where's your growth? Where's your growth over the last 10 years? Oh, you've been retracting over the last 10 years. Okay, maybe we need to look at a different idea and let's test this. I'm a big believer in testing things.
Yeah.
I've got a new client we're bringing on board. They've got an established vendor. They have something that's working for them right now, but they're not happy with it. We're going to go in and we're going to go after 25% of their market within a certain marketplace, and we're going to test our philosophy within a certain demographic and customer base. If it works, we're going to take over the account. If it doesn't work, they still have something that they can fall back on, and they know is going to help them out and do what they need to do until they can find the right solution that is going to work for them. So, I don't want to totally disrupt people's complete way of doing things right from the get-go without testing it and making sure that we are on the right track before we make wholesale changes.
But that testing must be difficult because you've got, different geographies, ages, demographics. Things test different in New York City than they do in Alabama. There's all of that. And people certainly at home office, what I call the bunker, they look at everybody as a persona.
Yeah.
And it's so different when you go out and talk to people.
Oh, it is so different. When you get out in the field, it is so different. I invite CEOs and CFOs and, the entire C-suite to come and spend a day in one of their booths with me at a trade show.
Yeah.
And I think that they learn far more when they take over the trade show booth for a day and roll up their sleeves than they do anywhere else.
Yeah, I had a CEO on the show, and he spent 2 months traveling the country meeting with customers. And he goes, he was a sales rep by training. He goes, man, It was just so enlightening to find out how they're using it, what they care about, what they don't care about. And I think that is such an overlooked thing today in this world of screen sharing and not wanting to travel.
Yeah.
And not wanting to meet people face to face.
Yeah.
And
I consider belly to belly as an investment in time, not a cost.
It is. And
if you look at it as an investment in knowledge, in understanding, in client relations, in cementing, information and being able to find out whether what you believe in the bunker and what you preach in the bunker is actual gospel, or if it's just something that you've been told that you believe is the gospel.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much information out there that when you sit there and actually talk to a real customer and say, what do you really believe? Like, how are we really doing? What could we do better? What are the products that would make your life better? How could we work with you to make your life easier? And you start asking those type of questions and actually, enacting policies and procedures that actually, feed off that. Companies get so much better so quick.
And that's it. And I think on the B2B side, that's the most overlooked thing today because everybody's kind of moving the sales force inside. The support stuff is all inside. Even going to conferences isn't as popular as it used to be. And, conferences have also changed a lot, too, in the last few years.
Yeah.
Now, what was going through your head when you decided to write a book?
Well, the first thing is, are you nuts?
You had too much time on your hands?
You just sit there going, no, it was interesting. It was about November last year. And what really sparked my interest in doing this is that I do a lot of mentoring at the university level. And I do a lot of workshops with university students about networking skills, interview skills, and personal branding skills. And I realized how lacking this was from the educational point of view. And I was talking to a bunch of friends of mine that are CEOs, and they said, absolutely. We're getting a whole generation of people that don't know how to communicate their own value out there in the marketplace because you're right. They spend their entire life in front of a screen and they don't talk to one another, and they don't take the time to understand this is what makes me valuable to these people and this is how I communicate it effectively. And that's where the book came from. The book came from that process forward. And I went, all right, this book is good for leaders, future leaders, sales teams, those entering the market or those re-entering the marketplace. And it gives them the tools to be able to sit there and say, these are the things that I believe in. These are the things that I don't believe in. These are the things that I cherish. These are the people in my life that have given me these experiences, and this is what I've learned from those experiences. The book goes through a bunch of scenarios in my life, tells people about some different things that have happened to me. And at the end of every chapter, I ask them a question that says, so who are the people that influence you in your life and why? And I've left 2 or 3 pages of space with lines for people to write their own answers. So it's a workbook, and it's very personalized and it's very, it's very internal process to be able to sit there and say, okay, this is my brand. This is what I believe. These are the things that are important to me, and this is what I'm working towards, and this is what I want to elevate my career to be. And those are the things that where the book came from. And I'm starting to see a lot of value of companies buying this book in bulk to be able to give out both to employees and also to customers.
Yeah, because I see so much bad stuff on LinkedIn. There's the photos with the phantom hands or the family picture.
Yeah. Or 2 people in the shot.
Right. Which one are you?
Yeah, that's right. Or the group shot, or you in the bear costume,
And then, especially if people are entering the job market, just cleaning up their personal brand. this is the frat parties and the gaming photos that, don't show either a face or don't really, spell out success in the reader's mind.
Yeah.
And what's different about the book than the other books on personal branding?
I think the fact that it is the workbook. Yeah. I think that there's the fact that there's actually space for you, time for you, and questions for you to actually put down your own thoughts. Yeah. And I think that's what's going to make it different. What I did is I took 10 of my really good friends from across the country that are very successful in their own rights, and I asked them 4 specific questions. And so there's 10 different chapters of those people answering the same questions about what does a personal brand mean to you? How has it made you successful? What are the things that people should look at in their brand, and what makes them valuable? The last question I'm just drawing a blank on, but so there's not just my experience, but there's experience of 10 people that have actually been successful out there in the marketplace. Yeah. So there's a lot of good shared knowledge out there from a broad range of thoughts that allow people to be better at who they are.
And I had the author of Niche Down on, Chris Lockheed, and he was talking about this as not so much personal branding, but becoming known for something.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people in all kinds of spaces become known for a certain tag word or a certain buzzword. Do you see that as important, or is it just a judgment call? Or
no, I think it is. I mean, my tagline is to stop being a commodity, instead be a brand worth loving.
Yeah.
And it tells a story. If you can engage people on a level of sitting there and say, this is what I believe, this is what I do. Beyond the fact that I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a marketer, I'm a sales professional. This is what I do to help people. And if your byline can be, this is what I do to help people, this is how I help people get better, that engages people.
Yeah.
If you tell people you're a lawyer, oh yeah, my cousin's a lawyer, I can't stand my cousin. Okay, the conversation's done.
And that's kind of a trap that we fall into.
Exactly. So, we all have a perception of what a lawyer is, what a doctor is, what a salesperson is, what an author is, whatever. We all have this perception. But if we can come up with a line that talks about how we help people be successful, first of all, what it does is it separates the wheat from the chaff. If the person's not interested, you know what? Thank you very much. Perfect, move on, because you know what? They're not part of your tribe.
Right.
But if they are interested, you've opened yourself up to them saying, well, what does that mean? And as soon as they ask you, well, what does that mean? Now you have the permission to tell a story that engages. And that's what I truly believe.
Great. And so the book is currently available in Kindle. And
yeah.
What's the release date on the paperback or the hard copy?
The paperback is coming out September 5th. Now, if people go to powerfulpersonalbrands.com, they can download a free chapter of the book and have a look at it before they commit to spending money on the book itself. And it will give them a great idea of what's in the book and how it's going to be valuable to them. I've decided to release a chapter for free because I thought that would give people an idea of why they should be able to buy the book. And the website again is powerfulpersonalbrands.com.
And how about on social? Where are you most active?
Oh God, I'm social mostly on Twitter and LinkedIn, but you can find me on Facebook and YouTube as well. It's yourbrandmarketing.com. It's shortened on Twitter because unfortunately you have to shorten everything on Twitter, and the YouTube is getting you noticed.
Hey, so what I'm adding to the courses is basically one-on-one that will be free if you're to let me share it with the rest of the students in the course. So you can abstract out your name, your company, your product, your competition, and your customers, but you can certainly, we'll talk through it and ask questions. And if there's anything that is proprietary, we can do it at the beginning or the end, but I'll be recording it and putting it in the course. I'm also going to be offering up, if you want one-on-ones and be completely open, but not share it, that'll be a cost associated with that, of course. But one-on-ones where we share it with the other students, I'm going to do for free. They're going to be 30 minutes max. I'm going to choose which people and when. I'll make it available, but if it's something that's just a repeat that I've done several times, I'll just point you to the right episode or chapter in the course. But if it's new and original or it's an example, a case study, I'm all for it. I really want to add more and more content to the course that's in addition to the office hours. So if anyone's unfamiliar with the course, it's not just a video. You get 1 year access to all the content. You get 1 year access to office hours, which is basically every other Friday per course, which about an hour each one. They all start at the same time. I ask people if they have any questions. If there's no questions, I usually have some kind of example or questions that I've heard via email. I'll be answering them. Then we make it a little interactive. So you get about 25 hours there of personal coaching. And it's the people who ask the most questions that get the most out of it, that really share their work. This is what I'm doing. This is the results I'm getting. How can I do it better? How can I be more effective? How can I outsource it and really scale this? So it's really critical that you really pull as much out of the course you want. The results that people are getting is phenomenal, really just crushing it. And that's the idea, is to really get you up into that 500K level, get yourself booked all week long. So people are really digging it. B2Brevenue.com. Right underneath training. If you want to do it for your company, I'm also customizing both courses for companies. You've got to have a minimum number of students, of course. But if you want to talk about that, my calendar link is under the training page. Just pick a time, a 15-minute slot. Look through the course table of content and see how questions you have. If you just want to email me questions, it's briangburr@me.com or connect up with me on LinkedIn. And make sure you're following the page on LinkedIn. It's B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. I'll be posting funny videos, useful videos on there every day. If you could like or share them, I'd certainly appreciate it. Also, make sure you're checking out all the partners. In the show notes, there's great content being developed by all of them. You got Gong's blog is really taken off. Discover.org's, they're coming up with a series of webinars. Make sure you sign up for them. They've done a great new integration with Bombora to show market data. Pipedrive, the new capability about being able to automate steps. If you want to learn how to use Nudge, I've got a free course under b2brevenue.com training. The coupon code for the training is the word Nudge. The coupon code for the professional version of Nudge.ai, you get 1 month free. It's Brutal Truth, same as Pipedrive. Make sure you're checking that out. Also, Co-Video. Jason Price over there, he's just doing great work. His team, make sure you check out their company page. They're putting out lessons on how to use video email. I think it's been super powerful and really interesting to see how they've grown and are communicating the value of video email. I really see a lot of people having success with it. It is one of the superpowers of 2018. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it is certainly a competitive advantage. I'm putting out videos every day on LinkedIn about little sales lessons and tips. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I'm open to connecting. Love to see you. Feel free to send questions there. I answer them on the Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.